After 27 years of peace in Derry, Maine, horrifyingly evil forces make a resurgence to once again terrorize the town. Fueled by a gruesome hate crime, the door opens for Pennywise to leave his mark on the town once more. Welcome, fellow horror movie enthusiasts, to another chilling recap by Sinister Snapshots, where we indulge in the thrills and chills of our favorite horror films. Whether you're a die-hard fan or just looking for a refresher, we're here to ensure that you won't forget the horrors. Get ready, my friends, because today we embark on a harrowing journey back into the chilling town of Derry, Maine in It Chapter 2. If you've not already done so, be sure to check out our previous recap on 2017 film It, the first of the two in this series. Now, brace yourself for a gripping tale of the Losers Club and their final confrontation with the malevolent entity known as Pennywise the Dancing Clown. It's now 2016, and a couple, Adrian Mellon and Dawn Haggerty, are viciously assaulted by a group of homophobic bullies at the town's festival. The thugs throw Adrian off the overpass, and he almost drowns until he's pulled out of the water by Pennywise. Dawn runs down to the water to see Adrian in the arms of Pennywise. He watches in terror as Pennywise takes a massive bite out of Adrian's chest. Mike Hanlon, the only loser who never left Derry, hears a report of the incident over a police radio. As he arrives at the scene, he notices "Come Home" written in blood under the bridge. This prompts Mike to reach out to the other members of the Losers Club, now grown up and living separate lives. Mike calls the group, who at first does not recognize his voice until he mentions that he's from Derry. Everyone becomes rattled by the phone calls as Mike asks them to return to Derry. Bill Denbrough is now married and is a successful writer, although he commonly receives feedback that his endings are weak. Eddie is a risk analyst who is married to a woman whose personality resembles his mother's. Ben is an accomplished architect who lives alone. Richie is a famous stand-up comedian. Beverly is now married and is a fashion designer. After she gets the call, Beverly tells her husband that she'll be going back to Derry to visit some friends. Her husband gets paranoid, believes that she's cheating on him, and begins to hit her until she fights back and runs away from their home. A flashback depicts that the psychotic bully who tried to kill the club in the Niebold house, Henry Bowers, survived being pushed down the well by Mike and had washed out of the sewers. When he returned home, there were officers waiting at his home after discovering the murdered body of Henry's father and arrested him. In the present day, Henry is in a mental institution and has become even more mad. He's visited by Pennywise in the form of a zombified Patrick, one of the other members of his childhood bully crew. Patrick presents Henry with his old knife. The Losers Club meets up at a Chinese restaurant and begin to catch up after almost 3 decades of not seeing one another. They reminisce with one another, but comment on Stanley's absence. As they open their fortune cookies, they each strangely only get a one-word fortune that they realize can be combined into one full message. The fortune reads, "Guess Stanley could not cut it." The other fortune cookies on the table begin to crack open, and grotesque bug-looking creatures emerge from within the cookies. The group leaves the restaurant, and Beverly calls Stanley's wife. Before his wife explains what had happened, Beverly knew that Stanley was found dead after slitting his wrists in a bathtub. Everyone groups together at the hotel that they're staying at, and Mike admits that the reason why he summoned everyone back to Derry was because Pennywise was back. They asked Beverly how she'd known how Stanley died, and she explains that she's seen how they all die because she saw the deadlights when Pennywise had captured her in the sewers when they were children. Bill finds Mike outside the library, where Mike begins to explain he's studied the history of it over the last many years. He said that he learned about something called the Ritual of Chud from a Native American tribe. The ritual can be performed to destroy Pennywise for good. Mike has a piece of pottery for the ritual and brings it to the rest of the group. He explains to them that in order for the ritual to be successful, everyone in the group needs to gather an artifact from their childhood and place it within the pottery so that they can kill Pennywise. Later on, there's a little girl named Victoria at a football game with her mother. Victoria is lured under the bleachers by a firefly where she encounters Pennywise. He makes her believe that he's benevolent and tells Victoria he can make the birthmark on her face go away because he knows that she's made fun of for having it. Directly after this, he opens his mouth in a wide, terrifying manner and consumes Victoria. The Losers Club goes to an old base in the woods that Ben built when they were kids. While there, they find a shower cap that belonged to Stanley. There's then a flashback that shows them all as kids, and Stanley asks the group if they'll remain friends as they get older. The group then assures Stanley that they all will. Beverly goes to her old home, where she meets an elderly woman, Mrs. Kirsch, who invites her inside. Beverly explores through her childhood home and finds one of her old packs of cigarettes, as well as the poem that Ben wrote for her on a postcard, which ends up being her artifact to be used for the ritual. During her interaction with the old woman, she notices that Mrs. Kirsch is behaving unusually. There's a spot on the woman's chest that resembles rotting flesh, as she mentions to Beverly that her father was involved in the circus. Beverly looks at an old photo and sees what seems to be a human form of Pennywise. After Beverly makes this realization, she turns back to Mrs. Kirsch as the woman asks if Beverly is still Daddy's little girl, mimicking what used to be said to her as a child by her predator father. The old woman soon after reveals herself as Pennywise and takes on a horrifying form that chases Beverly out of the house. On her way out, she sees Pennywise in his human form as a man named Bob Gray, who wears clown makeup and cuts the lines into his makeup, made red by blood running down his face from the cuts. Richie heads back to the old arcade where he used to play Street Fighter as a kid and picks up a game token, which he chooses as his artifact for the ritual. Richie experiences a flashback where he's playing a game, and Bowers teases Richie for being an implied homosexual. After this, the flashback cuts, and Richie is confronted by Pennywise, who says that he knows Richie's secret. He tries to attack Richie, but he gets away from the clown. Bill heads to an antique shop in the town and notices that his old bike is one of the items for sale there. He purchases the bike and rides down his old street, where he rides past the sewer where his little brother Georgie was abducted many years ago. Pennywise makes himself visible to Bill in the form of Georgie, calling to him from within the sewer grate and almost lures him in. Bill escapes, then sees Dean, a child who admits that he also hears voices, but they come from the drain in the bathtub. Ben gets an old yearbook page in which Beverly was the only one to sign as his artifact. He then proceeds to be haunted by a flashback, where he's sitting with Beverly, and she begins to ridicule him for his weight and appearance. In the flashback, Pennywise is taking on the form of Beverly, as he knows that Ben has feelings for her. Right after this, her head catches fire, and her hair begins to burn as Ben watches from within a locker. Ben turns around and sees Pennywise also in the locker room with him, as he begins to scream. Eddie returns to the old pharmacy that he would go to pick up his medications as a boy, and gets an inhaler as his artifact. After Eddie receives the inhaler, he begins to be terrorized by Pennywise in the form of his mother getting attacked by the leper that tormented him outside of the Neibold house as a child. Back at the hotel, Bill sees a message that says, "Won't be there for him either," in another haunting that he's experiencing at the hands of Pennywise. Bill realizes that Pennywise is referring to Dean, and the fact that he won't be able to save Dean from him, just like his brother Georgie. As Eddie cleans up from his encounter with Pennywise, Bowers appears and stabs Eddie in the cheek with his knife. The night before, Bowers managed to escape his institution. Using the knife that was given back to him by Pennywise, he kills one of the guards and escapes. Eddie manages to pull the knife out of his face and defends himself by stabbing Bowers and escapes to his friends for help. Bill heads to the carnival to try to save Dean and follows him into a hall of mirrors. Dean and Bill are then found by Pennywise, who presses his face up against one of the pieces of glass, showing his horrifying razor-sharp teeth. Bill and Dean are separated by a piece of thick glass between them, and Bill tries to break through his side to get to Dean before Pennywise can. But it's too late, and he has to watch as Pennywise murders the child. Mike is then in the library, looking through headlines of deaths that occurred in Derry, where Bowers hunts him down and tries to stab him. During the interaction, Richie comes from behind and kills Bowers by stabbing him in the back of the head. Everyone gathers their artifacts together and ventures to the Neibold house to once more face Pennywise. After a series of nightmares along the way, they make it back to the cistern where they place the pottery down to begin the ritual. Everyone throws their artifacts in, and the deadlights appear and descend into the pottery with the group's artifacts. The group feels a short-lived sense of relief, thinking that the ritual was completed. A red balloon rises, and Pennywise emerges from within it. During this, Mike admits that the ritual did not actually work the first time, and the group who first attempted it was all killed. He shows his true form, which is a gigantic spider-like figure with his face and limbs, and begins to chase after the group. Pennywise divides the Losers Club by showing more terrifying nightmares, which included Stanley's severed head. Richie is with Eddie, and they end up in a familiar vision that they had as children the first time that they entered the Neibold house. They see the severed half of a body, as well as an innocent-looking dog that transforms into a grotesque and horrifying monster. Beverly and Ben get split up from one another. Pennywise tries to have Ben killed by having him buried underground, and Beverly is once again trapped in a bathroom stall as it fills up with blood while she's harassed by many of her childhood traumas, including her father. Beverly manages to get out of the trap and pulls Ben out from the sinkhole, where she realizes that he was the one who had left her the poem on the postcard, because he recites the poem to her as he's sinking. Bill ends up in a vision of his childhood basement, where he's confronted by his childhood self talking to Georgie as he blames Bill for pretending to be sick on the day that he died because he actually just did not want to play with Georgie in the rain. Childhood Bill approaches his adult self with a bolt gun and holds it to his head. But the adult version of Bill forgives himself for what had happened and shoots the nightmare. As Pennywise is attacking Mike in the cistern, Richie throws a rock and strikes Pennywise in the head. He puts Richie in a trance, causing him to float. Eddie throws the fire poker into the mouth of Pennywise, causing him to release Richie. When Eddie checks on Richie, Pennywise impales him and tosses him into a cave. The group realizes that the only way to beat Pennywise is to force him to believe that he is actually small. So they begin to berate him as he begins to shrivel into a shell of himself. The group then rips his heart out of his chest and crushes it, causing Pennywise to be destroyed for good. The cistern room begins to crumble as Richie tries to pull Eddie out, but he's already dead. The rest of the group escapes the house as they watch it collapse. The rest of them head to the quarry where they swam together as kids, and Richie weeps for Eddie as the rest of them console him. As they head home, they look in a reflective window and see themselves as children, including both Eddie and Stanley. The final flashback shows the group riding their bikes home. Bill goes back to work as an author and has a feeling that his endings are getting better. He gets on the phone with Mike, and Mike mentions a letter that everyone has been getting. Bill receives the letter and sees that it's from Stanley, written before his suicide. Stanley's voice reads the letter over a montage of scenes of the group in the present. Beverly and Ben are now in a relationship, and Richie goes to a bridge where he carved his initials with Eddie, revealing that he was actually in love with him. The film ends with Mike driving away and finally getting out of Derry. That wraps up our Sinister Snapshots recap of It Chapter 2. If you enjoyed this recap, do not forget to subscribe to Sinister Snapshots, your one-stop destination for the best horror film recaps. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update on the latest and most horrifying tales from the best and most chilling films in the horror genre. And of course, leave a comment below about what other horror movie recaps or sinister stories you'd like to see next.